Hello world, my name is Ashley Martineau and today we're going to learn how to recycle a sweater. I still have a pair of scissors and a sweater. This sweater I chose because it's a little more complicated than the last one I did and I don't know, it looked like fun. So you want to turn your sweater inside out. One way to tell that this sweater is worth unraveling is the seams. There's two kinds of seams. There's a seam that looks like two little braids, which is what you can see there, and if you pull that apart you'll find a little thread in between. With my sweater the thread is green. Braids all the way down the arms, check the arms, and all the way down the sides. One seam that doesn't really matter on some sweaters is the shoulder seam. This seam is serged. So where this seam is, we're not going to be able to unravel the yarn there. We'll come back to that. But that's an example of a bad seam. If you find a sweater with seams like this, down the sides and down the sleeves, unless you want lengths of yarn like this long, don't bother buying it. It won't work. So once you have it inside out, you've got your two braids, and you're just going to start cutting and just kind of snip in between those two braids. I would be careful though if you're unraveling yarn that's really thin or really fine like cashmere or llama. You probably want to invest in like a seam ripper and actually rip each little thread as you go through, but with really bulky yarn like this it doesn't matter. I'm not a perfectionist, so don't worry about it. And just snip, 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 cut, 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 and just snip, 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 cut, cut, cut. And if you see I accidentally cut my yarn here, don't worry about it. So here's the end. I'm not going to worry about that little thread, just cut it. So there's my sleeve, and there's the front and back of the sweater. So now I'm going to cut this seam that attaches the sleeve to the sweater right along here. So now the sleeve is off. Since I cheated, I have both sleeves off. And this is the front and the back of the sweater with the neck in between. Now I'm going to remove the collar from the sweater. Every sweater is different, so sometimes you discover, oh, cut this first. Cut that part first. Because there's a little thread. Yay. Blonde moment. Okay, there's the collar. Let's see here. Where does that little thread go? Where'd you go? Sometimes you hit a dead end because there's like a little red and green braid around there, and I can tell by looking at that I'm gonna pull it and it's gonna come free. So I just need to get rid of that knot and find the beginning of this red braid, and it seems like it's being really difficult, like I'm trying to go from this side, try to go from the other side. There is a right and a wrong direction. If it's being really difficult and you find yourself having to loop the yarn like over and over and over for every stitch, you're probably doing it backwards. See, it's starting to come apart. I just gotta figure out. Aha! Yay! Woohoo! This is the fun part. The technical word for ripping apart knitted items is called frogging. And I think the joke behind that is that you rip it, like ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. See, as I'm pulling, it's just kind of coming off. So there's the neck piece. And if you can see, the top of the neck has all these little loops on it. And if you're a knitter, that's the exact same thing that your needle goes through. So sneak peek into the rest of the project. Roll it into a ball. And look, where the red and the purple meet, it's tied in a knot. you may want to like untie that or just use it as is. And this is basically all it is. The first thing you do is cut the braids, the seams, and the second thing you do is cut the bad seam. The third thing you do is find the little loops and just roll them into a ball. And it's interesting, as I look at this, it looks like it was knit with 2 strands of yarn at the same time. So if you want double the yarn, you can like starting at the beginning, unravel it into 2. Now back to the big project. There's where the neck was, and on either side of this I have a bad seam from and I'm just going to cut right across. Other shoulder seam, and you want to cut this bad seam completely off of both shoulders like that, and you can just toss that. So now I have no bad seam here and no bad seam here, but there's all these little bits and pieces, and if you notice as you unravel this, it's just going to give you these little short lengths of yarn. And this is what I was talking about when if you end up buying a sweater with all bad seams, you end up with these little dinky ends of yarn, which some people like to unravel those and then knit a scarf and have all these little puffy ends sticking out, which is fine. I mean, you can really work with anything, but if you want a long length of yarn, you really should get a sweater with good seams. It's the only way to go. I may not. Okay, now I'm starting to see that it's kind of connecting up with where the neck is. There we go. So now I'm at the purple on that side, and this is the part that I unraveled off earlier. What do I got going on here? Okay, so this purple wants to go all the way across, but it can't because I have all this yarn on top that I need to get rid of. So just find in between the loops just the little pieces, and usually what I do with the ends of the yarn is I donate them to the local birds in my neighborhood to make nests with. Okay, okay. Oh, yay. Yeah, I think we've got it. One easy way to do this is to take this part of the sweater and actually roll it like a burrito. Like this, so I have it kind of all rolled up in a tube. And then I've got the end of yarn. And that way, as I'm unraveling it, I can just unravel it from this tube. And that's it. I mean, the rest of this should unravel really, really easily. Sometimes it'll... So just roll, roll, roll. You just keep on ripping, 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 ripping all the way through. And then you do the same with the other side of the sweater. Here it is. You're going to do the same with this. You're going to unravel it from the shoulders down, and the very tops of the shoulders are going to be wasted yarn, which you can donate to your local birdies. And now I'm going to show you how to do the sleeve, because that's the only part we haven't unraveled yet. I'm going to do this sleeve first. So sleeves are always unraveled from the shoulder down. Sometimes in between there's a little thread, and sometimes not. Every time you unravel a sweater, it's different. Okay, so now this is pulling off like that. So I'll also kind of wrap this up into like a burrito and just unravel. So we're almost done with the red. There's the green. And there it is, woohoo! There's a little bit of that red thread left. As I come across that, I just pick it out. And so you just keep rolling it into a ball, and you'll end up with several very large balls of yarn. So thanks for taking the time to watch my video, and I hope you have a great year. Bye.